Signore e signori, buonasera, good evening, and welcome to Casa Italiana, Zerilli-Marimò, for this very special evening in which we will talk and see the latest documentary by John Maggio on the rise of Italian fashion. And I want to thank John for having accepted our invitation to screen here and to talk about his work here. This is a comeback, please, yes. This is a comeback for John because we had the fortune of presenting here his monumental documentary on the Italian Americans, and seated next to John there is Maria Laurino, who wrote the companion book to the series for PBS. So it's a return and a reunion also. That was a fantastic time that we had at that time. And when I saw on Facebook that John was presenting this film in Milan, nella Bocca del Leone, in the mouth of the lion, where all these people are and went to see it, I asked him on Facebook, in a comment, John, will you come present it at the Casa? And he immediately said yes. And here he is. And of course, as you know, and if you don't know, you should find out, we have an ongoing series about fashion, style, architecture, conceived and run by Grazia D'Annunzio, and Grazia has accepted to be here with us tonight to talk with John about his latest work. Yes? We also have Dr. Valerie Steele. She's the director of the museum at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, who appears in the film. Is there any other person in the film? No? Okay.
Here, no.
Here, no. So, Valerie, La Diva.
She's La Diva, yes.
So, we are excited. And before we start the screening, I would like to ask John to come and greet you.
Thank you so much. So great to... Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out on what is going to be seemingly a rainy weekend, but I really appreciate it. This is a return, and I have to thank Stefano for not just the support of Italian Americans and that piece of work that I did, but all the work you do here. I follow you, I come to these events, and you're a great keeper of the story of all things Italian. So thank you. And Maria Laurino, of course, so great to see you here, who's got a new book out in Italian.
We're going to present it.
Yes. Her son, I should say, Maria's son, worked on this film. Michael, I don't know if he's here, so Michael will get there he is.
Where is he?
Right behind us. So it's great to be here. So this film has played once in Milan. It closed Fashion Week in Milan. And it was so intense for me because many of the protagonists and antagonists in the film were there. And as you can imagine...
This is a much more relaxed
For me, I could do this all day. This is easy.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with Signor Armani and Versace and... Yes. So I conceived of this film, and as you'll see, I think, as kind of an opera. Because what I discovered, I think I always thought that for some reason... there always was Italian fashion, because everything Italian is so fashionable. Turns out there's a story, there's an origin story to this, and it has a lot to do with family, which is a big theme of my work. It was the theme of Italian Americans, and it's a theme that runs through this particular story as well. So look for that. I'm not going to tell you the title because my distributors, who it's not yet been distributed in this country, want me to not say the name of it, but you'll see it, and we'll talk about it after the film. I'll be here to talk to Grazia, who's so graciously here. And stick around and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. Yep. And talking about family, here we have tonight also the pleasure of having part of John Maggio's family. I would like to especially thank his father for being here with us tonight. Where is John's father? Eccolo il papà. Welcome, benvenuto. Enjoy the film. We're going to see you at the end. Thank you. John, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
It's fun to see you.
Great.
The atmosphere in the room said it all.
Yeah.
The tension.
Yeah, no, I think it was good. Played well.
I'm going to let Grazia go first with her line of questioning. Be careful because she knows a lot about fashion.
I probably know a lot more than I do about that.
No, actually...
Just let me tell you two things to introduce you, and then John. Grazia D'Annunzio was for a long time the bureau chief of Vogue Italia here in New York City. She started working with us at the Casa for the series that she creates. And last year we aired her alphabet, Italian fashion from A to Z. But do not expect A's, Armani, B. No, it's an alphabet very, very subjective that Grazia created. It's short episodes, video episodes. They're online on our website.
It's on YouTube also, so you can check it.
Do watch it. John Maggio is a documentary maker. His documentaries span from politics, economy and finance, secret weapon that would be the internet, and many, many other incredibly interesting topics in today's society. It's the first time that you did something about fashion.
Yes.
And without further ado, Grazia, take it over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight. And thanks to John for being here with us. A couple of things. I would like to acknowledge here the presence of Valerie Steele, the director of the Museum of FIT, who was interviewed. Thank you, Bob. Also, Bob Colacello, who amazing writer for Vanity Fair, and especially in the 70s, he worked with Andy Warhol at Interview, and he witnessed the rise of Milanese fashion. And on a personal note, my friend Luca Babini, a great photographer, and we started together in the early 80s working in Milan at Candid. So now, let's start some questions to John. John is an Emmy Award winner, documentarist, and he's also made his career focused on filming documentaries and movies based on social, political, and financial subjects. And I'm going to, for instance, remind you a couple of, actually 3 documentaries that he recently made. One is called Panic, The Untold Story of the 2008 financial crisis. That was done in 2008. 2018. And then the Newspaperman, The Life and Times of Bette Bradley, who was done in 2017. And the most recent one, who made his debut at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2021, which is A Choice of Weapons, inspired by Gordon Parks. So this long introduction, and finally the question, what brought you to do a documentary on fashion now?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it. It was nice to see it on the screen, so I really appreciate everybody being here. What brought me to this film? So I'm not a fashion person, and just as I'm not a financial crisis person or a photographer person, I'm just a documentarian. Somebody came to me, Alan Friedman, who is is a journalist in Italy. They call Alan...
He used to work, for the Financial Times, and he was based in Milan.
Yeah. And in Italy, he's become what they call Italy's American. Whenever they have a question about politics in America, Alan Friedman shows up on TV. Alan happened to be traveling in America at a time when my film Panic was playing on HBO. And he saw the film, and he thought, oh, maybe there's a story. He's always been following the kind of fashion business. And he thought, maybe there's a fashion story, the business story. Like, what is that story? And he loved the way I treated the participants of Panic in the great American bank bailout of 2008. So he approached me and said, would you be interested in, and I said, well, I don't know much about Italian fashion, sure. So one of the main characters in this foundation story, the origin story, is Giovanni Gastel, the late Giovanni Gastel, who was such a lovely human being and took me in.
Sorry, Giovanni Gastel was a fashion photographer who died during the COVID. And he was the nephew of Luchino Visconti. He was a wonderful photographer. We worked together with Giovanni, and he was a dear friend. And he was interviewed. And he's a lovely gentleman with a beard.
Yes. He's lovely. He's very fashionable. Incredible photographer. I met with him very early. I went to Milan to just sort of poke around and see what was there. And Giovanni took me in, and we just hit it off. Mm-hmm. And he obviously knew everybody. And his idea, originally, the idea was the way the film Panic opens up is to have all the architects of the bailout, Hank Paulson, all of the characters that were involved in the bailout, kind of congratulating themselves about it. They let me into a dinner for some reason. It was the anniversary dinner. And Giovanni thought, oh, I could probably get all these people together. I could get Armani and Santo Versace and D&G and Muccia Prada. I think I could get them in a room at my estate on Lake Como. And I said, okay, I'd film that. Let's do that. And so I got real excited about that idea, as you could imagine. And then COVID happened. And then sadly, Johnny died of COVID, from COVID. So I had to reorient. And I just started poking around. And as I said at the beginning of the film, I just assumed Italian fashion always was, pre-war, during the war. I just thought, these are fashionable people. I didn't understand the industry. So when I started poking around and I learned about some of the early pioneers, and I met Risotto Missoni, who was also really formative in the origin story of this film, I started to realize, there are families. I started to see how this was sort of working out. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized that it had a kind of almost, as Italian families do, an almost kind of operatic. I mean, the highs are really high and the lows are really lows. And as Giussi Ferre, another incredible interview in the film.
Very dear friend, that is the lady with the spiky red
the orange hair.
We worked together for many, many years.
She says it was very Greek. And and I think that Versace story is writ large. It's the Gucci story. It's the Armani story to a certain extent with Succession. And so I just got really enamored of that. It's like, and then I always had those questions too. It's like, well, what is fashion? What comes first, culture or fashion? What dictates what? So I got into that with Armani himself, who was very gracious again with his time. And so that's kind of how I started. I just started probing, and then you have this.
Well, probably as you notice in the movie, Italian fashion designers don't work as a team. American designers normally look like a nice, happy, big family. It's not true, but this is how the perception is. The French designers consider French anybody who comes to Paris and work. If there are very few fashion designers left, but they consider French designer and Parisian designers everybody who comes to work in Paris. Italian designers are very individualistic. That said, did you find any difficulties to convince the designers to join you in this project?
Yes, that's an understatement. I mean, they, generally speaking, when I put together a film, you start from the outside, and you kind of work concentrically, slowly. And journalists in here will know this. You kind of, you met that person, he vouches for you, and you go and you go and you go, and you get closer and closer to the big people. But there's so much politics, and there's a lot of vanity. I mean, if I told you the amount of time I spent colorizing Mr. Armani, you would be blown away, and the money spent. Oh my gosh, that was a major part of the time. That was my issue with, they're all very competitive. Muccia Prada would not appear on film. I did an audio interview with her. And in the end, she's lovely, so great and so gracious, and we talked forever. But I couldn't really use it because it's a visual medium, and I wanted to do her story, and I wanted to be part of it. Valentino. Giametti didn't want him to go on because we'd already done Pierpaolo.
But Valentino doesn't belong to Milan, I'm sorry. I mean, Valentino is from Rome and he shows in Paris. No, it's true. It doesn't belong to Milan.
From your mouth to Valentino's ears, I'm not sure I want to be part of that conversation. But tell us what Valentino said. So Valentino said after in the screening in Milan, Mr. Armani was there, Dolce&Gabbana were there, everyone was there. Zegna, who is just so well. I mean, God, I wish I could look that good at his age. But Valentino didn't come, but he put out a press release after the screening at the end of Fashion Week in Milan. And he said it was brilliantly directed, so I took it. But he said it was only half the story.
Oh, sure.
So
because he was not there.
Yeah, because he was not there. Yeah, because he and his partner Giametti couldn't agree to be on camera. So it's very complicated. But everybody who was there, obviously Signor Armani, loved it, and everyone was very gracious, and we had a great time at the Campanino afterwards till late at night, and it seemed to go over quite well, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, the movie premiered in Milan last February at the end of the Fashion Week. And talking about, Giametti was not there, Valentino, who was critical. I was slightly puzzled by the fact that you never mentioned Gianfranco Ferré in this movie. And Gianfranco Ferré was not only one of the most famous Milanese designer. Actually, he's the only Milanese designer. Armani is from Piacenza. Versace was from the south, from Reggio Calabria. And normally, if you think of the birth of Italian fashion, you think of Armani, Versace, Ferré. It's just thinking of Naomi, Linda and Christie in the supermodel world. And not only the fact that Ferré was called the architect of fashion, and he was a guy who graduated in the Faculty of Architecture in Milan, and he reinvented a very sculptural silhouette. But also, Ferré was the first ever designer who was called from Paris to sit on a chair of a very well-known couture house, which was Dior. So why you didn't mention him?
Oh, I'll take that. Well, I do mention him.
Yes, but briefly. I mean,
Right.
no footages, nothing else.
Yes. Well,
We have a couple of photographs.
he's foundational, you're correct, and obviously, and he is the architect, and he's structurally just so sound. But you got to leave some things out. And I found the Armani Versace story kind of blotted out the sun, and it carried my narrative forward, and it was catching a lot of the big ideas I wanted to put forward narratively about how it grew. And every time I spent time on Ferré, it just felt like everything kind of slowed down. And so it's a cruel medium. I tell everybody, I would love to have written the book about this. I think you could go down every alleyway. But with a film, I paint with a very broad brush. I don't expect, this is not the definitive story by any stretch. No. You could do a 10-part series on every one of these designers. So I had to pick and choose. I had to make some hard decisions. Ferré was one of them, unfortunately.
Another question that I would like to ask you is about the extensive presence of Tom Ford in the movie. Tom Ford, as you know, was for 10 years was the creative director of the House of Gucci, who is based in Florence, not in Milan. And Gucci, that's okay. And Tom Ford is the guy who injected in a very almost dying brand a high dosage of sexiness and sensuality, and also something very American, very Holston. But it's okay. So, it's interesting to me the fact that Tom Ford is a kind of commentator of the entire documentary. So why did you choose him?
Well, I got to be honest, it's like de Tocqueville. There are people who come to places and are able to see the world see the forest through the trees. Mm-hmm. Tom just had incredible insights because he was an outsider. I think often outsiders give us our perspective to us, and it's really important. And he happens to be incredibly charming and gave me an insane amount of time. And every avenue I went down with him, he had something really smart to say about fashion in general. And that idea of what is fashion. And I thought all of his insights, the catty, the dishy ones about Maurizio and cocaine and all that stuff aside, his ideas about fashion and what influenced a designer, I just thought were really valid here. And I like that. Why am I making the film? I'm not a fashion, I'm Italian American, but I'm not an Italian designer. He just happens to be a really important figure who I think, like I said, came in at a different angle and saw things differently, and I think that was an important perspective.
Speaking about Gucci, I think that this documentary is telling us something that we probably don't remember or almost forgot. Anyway, I'm talking about the partnership that failed twice between Gucci and the House of Versace. So this is kind of a scoop. And I would like to congratulate you, and I would like to know how you get out of it. I mean, how did you get it? How did you take it out?
I'll tell you, Domenico De Sole, who became another ally in this film. Domenico invited me to his house in Hilton Head, which is where the first interview was shot with him.
Sorry, Domenico De Sole was the president and the CEO of Gucci, the House of Gucci.
And Domenico, I don't know if he was just in a place, this is before he and Tom just, whatever, made that fortune off of selling Tom Ford, but he was in a real catty mood about business and told me a lot about those stories. And it was really through him that we got the foundation of that business story. And then we went to Santo, who was more reluctant to tell the story.
Of course.
And I have to credit Alan Friedman on that side, because Alan was in Italy with Santo and really worked Santo to get his side of the story. But Domenico was more than willing to share that story. And it just came out. And I thought it was fascinating. It was part of the business story we wanted to have.
Absolutely. Congratulations. So now I would like to know when the movie is going to be released and if it's going to be available in also on streaming, or if we have to go to a movie theater to watch it again.
Well, if you're in Italy, you'll go to a movie theater for it at this point. Eagle Pictures controls Italy's, and I don't know when they're going to roll it out. In this country, there are many things in the works at the moment. Some of those people may be in this room, so I can't really say. But it will be probably both in theaters and streaming at some point soon.
On my personal note, not because I'm Italian, but because I'm a fashion journalist, Italian fashion is extremely healthy and alive. We don't have, Versace own business. We don't have the Vinsoni's family, but we have Zegna, big industrialist, Zegna, Della Valle. Della Valle owns Schiaparelli. We have Renzo Rosso, who owns Margiela. We have Zegna, who owns Tom Brown, and Tom Brown is the president of the American CFDA. We still have Armani, we still have Prada, we still have Dolce. So we are strong. Strong.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Before I ask our friends here to intervene with their questions, I have a couple for you. You said that it's opera, it's operatic, and especially at the beginning, the music is very conducive to that. And you saw that in these stories that intersected, you saw the elements, the ingredients of opera, especially the position of the family, the importance of the family, even dysfunctional, where they kill each other, and the treason and
it's all the ingredients, yeah.
How did you, being Italian America, help you understand those dynamics?
Well,
I'm trying to make a connection with his previous film, more than with your family, obviously.
Well, no, of course. But my family is all of those things. I was really blessed to have an Italian-American family that I think, and my father is here, is obviously, on his side of the family was all artists, musicians, quiet. We're all Southern Italians, from Sicily, actually. On my mother's side, they were bombastic, businessmen, really outrageous, over the top, all the ingredients. So in my own family, I had that duality, and I recognized it. And actually the Italians, and some of you here may argue with me about this, but Italian Americans are very aware of the North-South dichotomy. And it's very real in Italy, except they don't want to talk about it, And that was one of the things I thought
Not
was
anymore.
There was not anymore. I know.
One political party that was called Northern League.
Right.
They chopped the word Northern from the name of the party.
Right.
And now they're just a league.
Well, culturally, it still exists.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah, and
but
so
you're right. They're more in denial. They don't want to
and
admit
that,
it.
to me, was that great grist, that creates that drama and that tension. And it just was so natural to me. And to me, it's like when you're able to see the field clearer than other people. I saw and anticipated. And even in my own, and in trying to get these interviews, you just saw, like, some of my staff was like, I don't understand. I'm like, just give it a second. Like, I've been here. We're going to let them crow and then we'll get them back on. And so there was, I think aware of those rhythms and those personalities and can deal with them. But instantly it struck me as that, because we did have all those essential ingredients. And that's for me why, Milano is an idea. It's not just a city, it's an idea, it's a stage for me. Milano was the stage for this opera that had all these families coming and going from all these different directions, incredibly creative, incredibly passionate, incredibly everything. And it just, I could have done so much more, one wants to just linger on each one of these families.
And that brings me to my second question about Milan.
Yeah.
It's like a love letter to Milan. The photography of Milan is amazing. Yeah. And was Milan a discovery for you as well?
It was. I did not know Milan at all until I started making this film. I had spent I love Rome. And I love Sicily. I've spent a lot of time in Sicily and Rome, but I had spent very little time in Milan. And I found what Francis McDormand said, it's all hidden. It really is. I mean, it looks very, it's a beautiful European city. It's a beautiful Italian city. The Duomo is gorgeous. But when you walk down those side streets and then go inside into the courtyards and then you see what is behind those doors, it is a magical place. And so she was absolutely right. And she was an incredible get, too, who I thought also saw that world from an outsider's perspective and was enamored of it and had great insights.
And too bad that Maria left already, but in her book called Were You Always an Italian? That was a question that Mario Cuomo asked her when she interviewed him for this interview of what it means to be Italian-American. Yeah. She talks about her being in Milan when she was expecting her first child, and her husband is still there? No, they left. But she could choose 3 kinds of strollers, same brand, but 3 kinds. The top of the line was called Milano. The second best was Rome, and the third, it was not Napoli or Palermo, it was Capri. See, that says a lot in terms of, through marketing, you have this sort of imaginary hierarchy of Italian cities. Milan is the top of the line, the stroller. So it was the discovery.
It was an absolute discovery for me because I always thought it. Everyone said, "Oh, it rains there all the time. You don't want to go to Milan. What are you going to do?"
You gave us a beautiful footage of Milan.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's good. That makes me feel good because when I was there, often it was raining, so it was a little tricky. But it was a major discovery for me. Because as I just, there's something, I don't know what it is, Rome, there's something about Rome that has always stuck with me. But no, I love Milan and I love going back there. And Beppe Sala, who I got to know, was really lovely.
He was our guest, yes.
Treated me very well and opened his doors. All those locations, I thought we got great locations to shoot in.
Absolutely.
And that was all Beppe Sala and Milan opening their arms to me. So I felt very fortunate for that.
And my last question, and then we're going to open to the public, that one would think that it could have been a great choral film with a chorus, but with these people, it's not possible. They're all soloists.
Exactly.
They're all prima donne or primi uomini.
Right? Well, that was my original intention, as I said, to have this dinner party and then bop around with the camera and hear them share their stories. But there was no way, without Giovanni Gastel, I was never going to get them in one room. Yeah, so it's true. So for that, it's all individual voices, which is a very American thing in many ways. But that's the question I had, I could put to you, which is the Italian fashion system. Why is it, it's not as robust as French? Like, what holds it back? Is it its Italianness? Is it that sense?
Yeah, Grazia, tell us something about this, because we were talking about it before. How individualism gets in the way of Italian.
The only thing is that individualism sometimes is the force of Italian fashion and also is the weak part of Italian fashion. The reason why, for instance, we don't have Italian fashion museum is because as you know, the designers can get together. And so you have the Armani Museum, you have the Valentino Museum, you have the Ferragamo Museum, you have each singular museum, but not a core museum. And the thing that I never liked is the fact that we don't have a sense of national identity. In terms of fashion, definitely we don't have any national identity. So we always worship the designers that are from France or from even the US, but we don't trust, and it's something that even our government couldn't care less about fashion. If you think of the French government, the majority of Italian designer got the Légion d'honneur. We don't have any equivalent award. No, but you know what? Yes, but it's not as pompous and it's not so well regarded like the Légion d'honneur. And you know what? No, Armani got the Légion d'honneur. Valentino got the Légion. 3/4 of our designer got the Légion d'honneur. And how many Italian designer got the Cavaliere del Lavoro? Very little. So it's also our government that couldn't care less about Italian fashion. Italian fashion is extremely important, but it's always considered something that is very frivolous and not substantial. So I'm very critical about it because we have a great treasure and we have great creative people and we have to support them and we have to be proud of them. But we have to trust them first. Not, wait for an external recognition. We have to recognize them from the inside. Thank you.
We have time for two.
Va bene.
Please raise your hand. Right there. To Rosina. No, wait for the microphone. Right there.
Rosina, wait for the microphone.
And then the next person, please raise your hand so our friend can bring you the microphone and we won't waste time.
What happened to the Fendi sisters?
I don't know.
Okay, the Fendi sister, most of them are dead, and I think that Anna Fendi is still very much creative. She is the one who gave us the Fendi baguette, and the Fendi family is not owned by the Fendi anymore, but they're very good, in shape. And Kim Jones, who's also the designer of LVMH, is doing a wonderful job. Stefano Pilati, former Saint Laurent, just did an interesting collection called The Friends of the Fendis, who was released yesterday. So Fendi is good. The family is almost disappearing, and Anna Fendi is the only one that is alive and in quite good shape.
Just speaking of the divide between northern and southern Italy, my grandmother, who was from Naples, always referred to people from Milan and Turin as Thai Italians. I won't say what she said about Sicilians, but
That's okay. Thank you.
it's very hierarchical, Italy.
Totally.
And maybe Italian Americans notice that more. But I have a question, maybe it's a little rude. I didn't quite get why Sharon Stone had such a big part in the movie, or why she was in it at all.
Well, that's good. That's a great question. She's just such a fashionista, and I found,
She is?
yeah. I mean, she was wearing her Dolce&Gabbana outfit. She was a former model, but she had.
She was never fashionable, I'm sorry to say.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Do you remember? Sorry, you remember, Bob, when Sharon Stone went to the Academy Award wearing a Gap T-shirt? Actually, she made interesting fashion statement. Anyway, I mean, she was a former model.
And I just found that interview we got. I think she was at Cannes or something. It was sort of a last minute kind of like, oh, there's Sharon Stone. And we got her, and then when I was watching her footage, I thought she has something really insightful to say about every. And she showed you. She's like, "See this? This is why. This is where." And I just thought it would wake people up. I mean, she's Sharon Stone, and I thought what she said was generally really smart about each piece of clothing, because I think, like any superstar like that, she's worn everything. She's worn every designer. She wasn't a spokesperson for any particular brand, and I thought it was smart, surprising. It was a surprising choice.
And then, yes, question back there, and then Doc.
Hi there. So I'm just really interested. You said that you were not into fashion beforehand. What are your feelings now on fashion? Did you buy anything? Did you get an Armani jacket?
Yes, I you know what? Here's to understand me about fashion, it's very simple. The other night I watched the David Beckham documentary on Netflix, and I thought, wow, that guy always has a great sweater on. And so you could ask my wife, I went out and bought about 4 sweaters yesterday. That's how I took fashion. No, for me, fashion, there's a saying in Italian Americans of bella figura. It's an Italian saying. And I've often thought that. I have people in my family who will go unnamed, who some are here, who dress to tell a story. They're always keeping you over here because they're dictating the story. It's bella figura. And it's a way of life, and it's a way of seeing the world. Some may call it a form of Italian narcissism, but not me. And I feel that same way about myself. And I enjoy getting dressed up, but I'm telling a story every time I do. And I'm telling a story tonight by not wearing a tie and a suit. I'm not that person tonight, so I'm going for it. But that's about it. I mean, I'm not a fashionista, so to speak. And I have friends in the business very high up, and they think it's funny that I've made a film about fashion, but I think it's smart.
Well, since you are
Before
a filmmaker,
we listen to Dr. Steele, we have a course that is being taught right now here in the Department of Italian Studies on fashion. It's entitled La Bella Figura. Dr. Steele.
I was going to say, my question's not about fashion really, but about filmmaking. And I wonder which documentaries about Italian fashion had you seen before you, or while you were making your own?
None. I really have not. I did not.
You never saw the Valentino Last Emperor or anything?
Nope. Still haven't. Not interested. I really. Yeah. No, man. I mean, I don't. I was sailing by the lights of what I was getting. I mean, that's generally, when I go into something like this, I try to just have my eyes wide open and understand what's right in front of me. And I thought I brought enough context to the story. But no, I have not done a deep dive into a lot of the documentaries that are out there. I know there's some. The Valentino one I've heard people talk about. But I was also a little pissed at Valentino, frankly. I mean, because he kept denying me. But you were so great. I have to thank Valerie Steele again. I think, talk about bringing context. Your ability really to bring everything together, like it really is the glue to the story, and I can't thank you enough for giving me your time at that place. Thank you.
And I think it's all the time we have, and I want to thank John Maggio. And the promise to us is that we will let you know through our social media when the film comes out in theater or is going to be streamed in one of the platforms. Thank you very much. Grazie.